We're going to turn this on. It is.
I don't know, do you need the light, Skip?
Yep.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, the sensor in this camera is a little weak on the inside. So. I was a little disappointed, but as far as live streaming is concerned, this thing is great.
By the way, Norm, you were incorrect. There was the bookie operation I used to run.
I'm sorry?
There was the bookie operation I used to run.
Oh.
Magnus, speaking of which, don't you still owe me a few bucks?
I don't think so.
It being 7 o'clock, state your pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the Gilford Selectmen's meeting of Wednesday, June 26, 2019. This meeting is videotaped for the purpose of showing over the cable television public access channel. We ask anyone who will be addressing the Board of Selectmen, please come forward and speak at the podium and identify yourself. This recording will be forwarded to Lakes Region Public Access TV. Anyone wishing to purchase a copy of the recording can coordinate through LRPA. Copies may also be viewed anytime at the town's website, gilfordnh.org, and on Public Access Channel 24 at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. 7 days a week. And finally, we ask everyone in attendance to kindly turn off their cell phone. Review and approval of minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes of July 10th, 2019 as presented. It says July here, sorry, I read it. June 10th. Let me make that correction here in my notes. Yeah, June 10th, 2019 as presented.
Second.
There being a first and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes of the June 12th, 2019 meeting as presented.
Second.
There being a first and second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the items previously signed during the period June 10th, 2019 through June 21st, 2019 as listed.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I move to seal the minutes of the non-public session held on this date as they pertain to employee discipline and matters that may adversely affect someone's reputation.
Second.
There being a first and second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, next is a public hearing, amendments to outdoor vendor and transient fee schedule. The Guilford Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing pursuant to the provisions of RSA 31:102-A and RSA 41:9-A as authorized by a vote on Article 15 of the 1990 Annual Town Meeting on proposed amendments to the outdoor vendor and transient sales fee schedule. The proposed fee changes would decrease the cost for permits as follows: daily from $65 or $50 to $25, weekly from $400, $300 to $100, monthly from $1,500 and $1,000 to $250, and annual from $2,500 or $2,000 to $500. If approved, the new fees are scheduled to take effect immediately. Copies of the proposed ordinance with the fee schedule are available at the Selectmen's office or online at gilfordnh.org. Copies will also be made available at the public hearing. Any interested person may attend this public hearing and or submit testimony related thereto. I now open the public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to speak on the vendor fees? Evening, Joe.
Good evening. Joe Wernick, 3 Gary Circle. I apologize for not making it to your last meeting. I had a school function after bringing it up at the previous meeting. I just wanted to thank the selectmen for acting upon this so quickly. I really appreciate it, and I know it is great. If you were here earlier, Janine was here with the Winnie Wagon, and she's here right now. But I think it's a real good thing that we did, and I think it's good for the town of Gilford. And like we mentioned before, hopefully we'll open it up for other businesses to do the same. So I just wanted to express my appreciation. So thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor or against permit?
Skip Murphy, 9 Gilford Glen Road. And I was rather shocked at the organizational budget committee for this upcoming budget season to hear about how much it costs for basically a food truck to try to do business here in town. I was incensed, however, when I asked Scott Dunn why the fees were so high. And the retort back to me, and I have it on video, was to protect those who pay taxes here in town. That puts the town in the position of being the arbiter of who can do business here in town. Is that really the proper role of government? To talk to the fees, I'm glad to see that you lowered them. Frankly, I still think that they're too high. Why? What kind of services is the town providing in order to charge these fees? There's nothing in your notice of public hearing to say, what is the town doing in order to get the value from these fees? So that's my first question of you folks. What kind of services are being rendered for these fees? Because frankly, if you're going to go with that particular philosophy of charging such fees, I have another schedule which I think is far more in line with the idea that the town should not be a competitive barrier for entry for other people. If daily 15, weekly 60, monthly 120, and yearly 450. But really what it comes down to is just register. $25, $50, period. Because that's what some of the surrounding towns are doing. They just say, just let us know you're doing business here in town. End of story. And I would rather see the town do that than having a graduated fee structure based on a time slotting mechanism. But that's only the surface problem. I have a real issue with Scott Dunn's statement made at that time. Why? Let me go back. This was set in place back in 2012. And I want to really know who the economic twit was that put this into place to act as a barrier for competition in an industry that shouldn't even concern the selectmen or the town of Gilford. Rags, were you a selectman at that time?
No.
Chan?
No.
Gus?
It probably was.
You were.
It probably was.
Scott, were you in office during 2012?
Yes.
All right, I want to know, Gus, I'll start with you. I know that Kevin Hayes and John O'Brien were also the selectmen at that time. I want to know what the genesis of this whole idea was in the first place, because none of it has been covered at this point. So I'm hoping that you can tell us who was the one who came up with this idea that food trucks should be outed from Gilford in order to provide satisfaction to those brick and mortars already in town, and who came up with the fee schedule.
I couldn't recall why 7 years ago how it started, who brought it up, what was said, for or against. You would have to go back into the minutes, so Scott can go back into the minutes and try to figure that out to answer your question.
So that's not something that you did to go back in preparation for this public hearing?
Nope.
Chan or Rags, did you happen to look back in history to find out, look at the notes?
No, I didn't, but one of the things we do have is a list of what some of the other towns do charge at present, and seems to be all over the place, anything from a lowly $15, just $15, no like daily, monthly, to some are $200 to $330. Some are like $53 a day or $50 per month. It all seems to be different, and I don't necessarily understand the logic behind the various ones. I don't understand necessarily the logic we have for ours.
All right, well, that leaves you, Scott, and you're the one who said it was supposed to be a barrier, in other words, translated, a barrier to entry against food trucks. So do you recall who came up with this food truck licensing scheme that's in force right now, and why, and who may have asked for it to be put into place?
All I can tell you is that it was ultimately approved by the Board of Selectmen.
That seems to be a rather wishy-washy answer.
That's the answer that I'm giving you. It was approved by, I don't set fees, the Board of Selectmen sets fees.
Well, you also have quite a bit of influence with whatever select board it is, and I'm getting the sense that you know more than what you're willing to tell me and the rest of the town at this point in time.
Mr. Murphy, if I may.
Yes,
We disagreed with the schedule the way it was, and we're looking to change that now. I mean, it's
And I
fine,
agree-
it may have been the prevailing thought at the time, but we're looking to amend that to correct a wrong and make these fees amenable.
and I think that's a good thing. I disagree with the fee, even though you've lowered them, I still think that they should be lowered even further. But that's just the surface level problem. The real problem is it the proper role of government to act as a barrier to entry to anybody in any industry? So the wider question is, what is the brick and mortars restaurants in town paying? Are they commiserate with this new fee schedule, given that they're full-time year-round? And are there any other instances of rent seeking going on within anything else that you have oversight on? That's really the issue here tonight, not just the fee schedules for this young entrepreneur. It's more of a case of, is the town also acting as a barrier to entry in other areas?
Skip, we're here to determine these fees. You're going into another area.
It's a related area, and it's actually a foundational area. Because you're absolutely right, you're correcting a wrong, in that you're correcting a foundational problem that, yeah, the fees are one thing, but I think you've realized that the town was acting as a barrier to entry. My only question is, what else is the town doing to act as a barrier to entry for other companies in other entries, making Guilford not a good place for entrepreneurs to come? If you've done it once, are you doing it again?
Can we discuss this in the public input?
I thought this was public input. This is a public hearing.
A public hearing on fees.
On the vendor
Okay.
fees, we're just
I-
straying a little bit off subject here.
Okay, well, that is my intent, and if we wish to save this argument for the public comment, I'm very
Yeah.
happy to do that.
Yes, please.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, one thing though, Mr. Murphy, just before you go, you suggested that perhaps the proposed fees might be still, do you have some suggestions you would like to make in that regard?
Well, I do, as a matter of fact. And I can give them to you. I will circle them, and I will also circle my real answer to that, which was $25 to $50 per year, flat fee.
Okay, so just a straightforward fee, no graduated one.
Correct, just to cover the cost of the paperwork. To print it, file it, and be done with it.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak on the vendor permit fees, pro or con? There being no further public input, we'll close the public portion. You see anything there?
Yeah, I do. I just, I'm just going just to amend things slightly
Yeah.
here. Okay. Mr. Chair, I move to amend the proposed vendor fee as outlined in the public hearing proposal from from the list we had prior, I'm not gonna repeat the list, we fill them, to $25 flat fee for vendor permits. That would be just the application fee would be good for the year.
Is there a second? Appears the motion fails for lack of a second.
In that case, I will try another one, is to amend the application fee for vendor permit to $50 for the year.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
Certainly.
Please. T.A. Dunn, I just for clarification, when we have a notice of public hearing and we, as a Board of Selectmen and as a town, advertise what the notice of public hearing is, and specifically regulations, ordinances, fees, at that meeting, it's okay to change whether it's an ordinance or whether it's a fee schedule without notifying the people again?
The threshold is an amendment that would be considered substantive. So it would be for you guys to determine whether the advertised fees, which is the 25, 100, 250, 500, to go to, in this current motion, $50, whether or not that is substantive.
I guess my next question, Scott, would be is if a business wanted to open up a restaurant in Gilford, what are their fees?
I don't know off the top of my head. I do not know. Clearly, there's a process through the planning board.
Mm-hmm.
There's a process through the fire department. There's state permits, health permits. I don't know what it all adds up to be.
So my question, I guess, Scott, would be is if we change this, for instance, to the Vice Chair's recommendation of $25, what would that have an impact on any of the existing businesses that have to pull a permit, whether it's yearly or whatever our fee schedule is?
I'm not sure I understand it. Talking about an impact on
Existing businesses?
existing businesses that don't fall under the vendor and transient fee schedule? I really don't know the answer to that. The rules that someone operates if you're a brick and mortar are entirely different than the rules that apply to outdoor vendors and transient sales.
Thank you.
Is it my understanding there's an owner of a food truck out in the audience? Would you mind answering a question?
Yeah.
Would you step up to the podium, please? Could you identify yourself, please?
Janine Geddes.
And you drive, what product do you sell from your truck?
As far as the type of food?
Yeah.
I do breakfast and lunch items.
Okay. You've heard everything that's gone on.
Mm-hmm.
You're seasonal, or are you year-round?
Well, I'm just starting, so I'm still playing with it, so the goal is to be year-round, but with the cold months, that may not go the full year, but for most of it.
Other than a zero fee, which I'm sure you'd like to see, but would you prefer a yearly fee? I mean, is that more amenable to a truck operator, or?
Yeah, to me it makes more sense rather than going a day-to-day type process.
And if I may,
Certainly.
have you looked, since your business is just starting up, so you'd probably be fresh to this, have you looked at other towns and what their fee schedule would be for you to operate in those towns?
So today was my first day open, and I was in Laconia. They charge $50 a month. As far as I know, they didn't have a year fee. It's just a month-to-month basis. Alton, I went to Alton, I don't remember their numbers, they were very high, so they're out of the question right
When
now.
you say very
They
high,
were
did you look at?
$500 a month for Alton, yeah.
Yeah, they're 50 a day, 500 per month.
Yes,
So if I do the math correctly, what you're saying is Laconia for the year is $720,
if that's for, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And you said Alton for the year would be what?
I don't quite.
No, I'm asking the
Oh,
chair, hold
sorry.
on one second. No, you're
Well, it's
good.
500 per month, so times
At
12.
least 6,000.
Right,
Yeah.
so it's 6,000 in Alton, and Guilford is proposing a $500 fee. So we're less than Laconia and less than Alton, if this was to pass.
Mm.
Have you checked in any other town like Belmont? Do you know what Belmont is, just by chance?
Not yet, I'm planning to check there though.
You have what Belmont is, right?
I don't have that list, I don't have that here on this list.
Meredith?
Scott, let me ask you a question. I mean, if somebody comes in just for the weekend, and we have a $500 a year thing, they have to pay $500 for a weekend?
No, they would do daily or the weekly. They'd either do $25.
Well, his proposal is,
So it was just $50, not, that would be for the year.
yeah, okay.
So they pay for whether they pay that $50 or whether it's for a day or for a year.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for taking the time.
Could we hear again
Thank you.
what are the items in the food truck? I couldn't hear. What is it?
I do breakfast and lunch stuff, so like breakfast sandwiches, breakfast burritos, as far as that's breakfast, and then I have a mac and cheese burger, buffalo chicken, grilled cheese, just stuff like that.
Very good.
We wish you well in your business.
Thank you.
Yes, good luck. I mean, what if we did a daily thing for somebody that comes in for the weekend and then everyone else a yearly fee? I don't wanna charge somebody a yearly fee who's only gonna be here for a weekend.
Well, I believe we have it broken down for daily, weekly, monthly, and then for the year, we have 4 for that. But again, $50 for the year, that's cheap.
Yeah, it is.
There's some towns, they just charge $50, there's no time period on it, you're just charged, it's just a permit that they're paying for.
Mr. Chairman, may I make him a remark?
Sir?
I'm hearing, trying to match towns on fee schedules, staying with the segmented time periods. I think that's the wrong question, or the wrong way of going about it. And I think I mentioned this earlier, which is, instead of trying to match against various towns like you do in everything else, well, this town charges this town charges that, so we should be charging this. I think the right question is, what is the actual cost to the town to cover an activity of this sort? What is it that the town must do, and what should the fee structure be for that? When, under the current system, if you have a food truck here in town, what is the town doing, other than just collecting the money and filling out a piece of, or several pieces of paper? Really, it should be just a simple pass-through. We need to know that you're here. If something happens, here's the cost to provide that information and to file it away.
Skip, it's a good question, thank you. The chiefs are here. I hate to put you guys on the spot for a second. Could you guys both come up here for me, please, just so it's on the record?
I think you enjoyed putting us on the spot.
We wouldn't have it any other way.
The resident brings up a good question. So a food truck wants to come into town, fills out the application. What impact or what responsibilities does the police have, if anything, with that business? What does the fire department, if anything, has associated with that business?
I think we were just having
We were
some of
just
that
having that
conversation, but obviously the potential is there for increased traffic. We really don't know where the truck would be setting up. Would it be on a public way or beside a public way or in a parking lot? Would it be drawing additional traffic or have any of those types of concerns. As far as fire safety goes, they have to meet certain requirements for that. So something I think that may be important down the road as we continue these conversations is maybe some type of permitting process. So it would give us an idea of where they would be setting up, making sure that they would meet all the requirements that we would have or that we would need to have. And then give us some general knowledge of how they would be operating as well.
Chief?
Yeah, and I would, concur and say the same thing. My concern would be, I think they're, welcome addition to the town. My concern is they're in a parking lot and the owner of the parking lot says, I want them out of here. Typically, they would say, well, where can we go to set up? I don't know where to send them, Does that mean they could go to, say, Lily Pond and set up in the dirt section? Then we've got cars stopping to, patronize them there to buy their food, but then what does that cost? So I think if we had an area, or there was some kind of permitting process, there's a place for them to go to set up that we could do that. Because I don't know where, right now, I guess they can just set up anywhere in town, right, is what we're saying. There's no jurisdiction for that.
And obviously, we deal with food vendors at special events. Some of those are food trucks. So absolutely, we're not opposed to it, but I think just by the nature of the truck being mobile and traveling to different venues or setting up in different spots, that may create some logistical issues for us.
Does the fire department or or your deputy have any responsibilities at inspecting any of these establishments?
We do at the special events especially, and I'm not quite sure how we would do that with a food truck. I guess it would depend where it was licensed and where it was established. And then, you have a food truck that comes into your community on a Sunday morning and sets up. We may never even know about it unless it was some type of problem or a complaint.
Can I just ask, you said you were in Laconia today?
Yeah.
Do they have restrictions of where you can be in Laconia, or just?
So I needed permission from the owner of where I parked, and then I called the fire department and asked Laconia if I needed a fire permit, and they just said if I have my, what's the word? No,
Your permit,
for the fire department.
Oh, your certificate.
They needed to know that I had a certified fire
Okay.
extinguishers and.
Fire suppression system.
Yes,
right,
yes,
system.
that's the word. Yeah.
All right, so you were in a business parking lot? So you just got the owner's permission?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, so that would be fine, I guess if there was some kind of process in place to let these vendors know, just if you want to set up in a parking lot, you have to just get permission, so then we can deal with that, and that's fine, we know, so. I mean, I don't personally, the only thing we're gonna deal with is if they call, if they're on private property, somebody wants them off or out of the parking lot, or if we get a traffic complaint. So if they're set up well off where cars can go and frequent them and partake in what they need to do and don't cause a traffic issue, I don't have any other issues.
Chief, does the fire department or your health inspector or health officer have to inspect these businesses in general?
To be honest, when we do special events, he does. He inspects all of those food booths and trucks like that may be at Soul Fest.
Sure.
Or even at the Village Field for a loan day, but I'm not really sure what we would do for a food truck that just comes into town for one day. That's a new one on me anyway.
Well, going along that thought, is the thought that you're supposed to be inspecting those trucks as well?
They have to meet state health regulations for sure, yeah.
So you're supposed to inspect those trucks?
Somebody is.
So for instance, would it be somebody from the town or somebody from the state? Because you're telling me that in Soul Fest and any other special event, you guys are responsible for doing that, correct?
Right. And yes.
Why,
So for example,
why is that you're responsible and not the state?
we can do the initial inspections, and then if we find any major violations, we would certainly call the state in. And I believe that the state has overall jurisdiction in those types of matters, but we can work as their agent. Recently we had a restaurant in town that had some issues. We called the state in to take action on the restaurant.
So if I hear you correctly, what you're saying is this is a well-established process that that a business, a food truck specifically, comes into town. You actually do inspect these. You do spend labor and time and resources inspecting these.
We do, in different situations.
Yep, yep. Well, if somebody came into town on a mobile truck and they were going from section to section, and they were getting held to the same standards as somebody else who is at a stationary section, that's a disparity there too, correct?
Correct.
And at the end of the day, the public may not be getting served correctly if these establishments aren't being inspected. Is that correct?
That's possible. If we didn't know about them,
Right.
if they were, coming in, it was like a one-hit weekend type of thing, we may not know about that. There's certainly no permit process in place for that at this point in time.
So when we say the question of, these permits, it's just a flat fee of $25 to just process the paperwork, that's not necessarily valid, correct? There are other expenses and resources that are going to have to be, or that may be incurred to inspect these establishments, is that correct?
Sure.
Thank you, gentlemen. Do you have any questions for the chiefs?
No, I don't.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Rex, can I address that, what they just talked about? It's all it's all in here. Where are the locations?
Go ahead.
It's, Joe, we're in a Gary circle. It's all in the packet that you guys hear, as far as locations, where they can go. She has to be certified by the state. Department of Health has certified it and all that. They have to provide a copy of that to the town hall. They have to provide a copy of insurance. All those questions, and even as far as locations, where they can go, it's all down on this, what do I call this?
It's already in the
Ordinance.
RSA, it's already in the ordinance.
Correct.
So,
I want to be clear about something, Joe.
okay,
I'm in favor of this,
yes,
okay? That's not the question.
yeah,
If anyone has been attending the selectmen meetings for the last 12 years, I'm the biggest pain to these guys because I constantly have the same phrase. The Board of Selectmen should be a help to business and not a hindrance. But at the same time, the Board of Selectmen represents the entirety of the town of Guilford, and we have to make sure that we are covering costs for processing any kind of business or services that the town is offering. So that's all we're trying to get to is what is fair and equitable for these fees. And that's what we're trying to correct today. We all are in agreement that when we looked back at these fees, we thought that they were not correct, they weren't valid, they weren't appropriate.
yeah.
And that's why we're here today to try to correct it. And if the proposed fees from $25 daily to $500 annually is still not the correct number, that's what we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
So if we can reduce that a little bit more to help business, that's what we're trying to do. That's why we're asking these questions.
Yeah, yeah, and I just wanted to point out that, it doesn't.
It's already in there.
Okay.
I agree.
Thanks, Chip. I do want to say a little bit, this list, to me, this list of what other towns do is only a guide. I'm not trying to match any other town. We're breaking new ground for us here, and I want to do what's right for Guilford, not what was right for all these towns that are listed. I want to be fair. I'm concerned that if that young lady, we charge her, say, $250 for a yearly permit, how does that affect the guy that's coming in just for the July 4 weekend? What does he pay for a permit? I'm concerned about unintended consequences, as I've learned from Scott. That's all.
We still have the motion, which has not been seconded.
Could you repeat the motion for me? Because we kind of forgot it. Sorry.
There was a motion to change the outdoor vendor and transient sales fee to $50 application fee for the year.
I'll second it for purposes of discussion at this time.
We have been discussing it.
Well,
We're out of, you'll have to excuse us, we're a little out of order here.
Scott, and for what it's worth, I closed the public meeting and I let a lot of people come up, so I wanted to hear what they had to say. Scott, the fairness issue, somebody comes in for a weekend versus a yearly permit, if we just charge that single fee, somebody comes in for a weekend, they're gonna pay this amount, but somebody who's here for a year, and gets the support of the police and the fire department, is that fair? If we charge, what was your dollar amount?
I don't think it's my position to say whether or not that is fair.
Oh, it's $50. I mean, they have other
Perhaps I
people.
shouldn't say fair, but
Let's put it this way, it's just so that they can do business in the town. That's all it is. I mean, it's, most things that I've dealt with business in the past, it isn't a weekly, monthly thing. You pay for the year, and whether you're there for a day, you're there for a year. I mean, and it's a small amount. You know, we're not talking about you're paying $500, whether it's for the day or for the year. You're talking $50 here.
I'm concerned too for the town though, that it's just like I pay my taxes for the police and fire department, and I don't recall needing them. So should these vendors be supporting the police and fire department with a permit fee that's fair?
She's a
Well,
resident.
then your definition of fair and my definition of fair may be entirely different.
Hence, I didn't bite.
Good thing, good thing.
You're at $50 right now?
$50.
All right. Any further discussion?
Oh, that was the first and second, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Fair, applies to a fair day.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
No.
I think it's a little too low for a yearly fee.
Well, then would you like to make a suggestion? I mean, right now we have four different levels.
know.
I think that's probably too many.
Yeah.
And I think 500 is way too much.
Yeah.
What do you guys feel about 50 a month, 100 a year? We look at it that way. And then we can always review it.
50 a month and 100 a year?
Yep. We can review it.
So whether they're buying for 1 month or 2 months, they're really paying for the year.
I'd entertain 25 and 100.
I would too.
25 a month and 100 a year.
Fine.
You
Make a
make
motion.
All right, I'll make the motion. Okay, I move to amend the outdoor vendor and transient sales fee schedule as follows. $25 for the month and $100 for the year.
Second.
Oh, okay. There being a first and a second, I'm not gonna ask about discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries.
Good decision.
Good outcome.
Okay.
We haven't had the public hearing input part yet.
I'm waiting.
Okay.
I'm being patient.
Understood. All right, appointments. Catherine Dormady, Library Director. Hey, Catherine.
Good evening. So I'm going to talk about through the end of May for our statistics. The library's checked out close to 40,000 items so far. And in addition, we've had about 4,000 digital items, which include ebooks, downloadable audios, and movies. These numbers are really similar to last year, and we're just now entering our busiest months, June, July, August, September. Our program numbers are up significantly. We've had over 6,000 people or participants in 340 programs for adults and 169 programs for youth. We have a great lineup for summer, and I did bring calendars. You know, I like handouts. In addition to our regular programs, we've also reached out to the schools, and we've given book talks to pretty much every single class in the elementary school and the middle school as well. What is a book talk, you may ask? And that is where the librarians go and pick out some of the newer, better books and get kids excited about reading them. So we've had very good success in the schools with them coming in and checking things out immediately after our book talks. So, summer reading started yesterday. We had a fabulous first day of summer reading with 1,289 items checked out yesterday. 705 people entered the library, and 44 people signed up for adult summer reading, 53 teens, 139 kids, and 23 families. So we're hoping to order up rain for every single summer reading opening. We hosted a graduation for 1,000 books before kindergarten program, and that's a statewide initiative that's been going very well here in Gilford. We had 6 graduates and 91 people still participating in the program. We started back up with our little free libraries, one in the Glendale and one at the beach, and then we also just started a bookshelf at the village store. So we get stuff from discards from the library and donations to stock those, and we monitor what's going on in those particular locations. And if you've been to the library lately, you may have noticed some beautiful art on our walls downstairs, and that has been courtesy of the Fermata Arts Foundation that has supplied traveling world art exhibits. This month's display is from the children of Lithuania, and it's incredible some of the art displays we've had in the past couple months. Looking forward, Library Card Sign-Up Month is every September, and this year we're planning to go all out and visit local businesses and partner with the schools to get everyone who doesn't have a library card signed up and checking things out of the library. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you very much, Catherine.
Yes.
Nope, thank you, Catherine.
Thanks, Catherine. Next up, Denise Gonyer.
Good
You
evening.
gonna get through this?
Yeah, I'm gonna get through this. I can't say much because it's a pretty emotional thing to talk about, so.
Understood.
Basically, you have the letter of resignation for my position, and there is one correction in it. There's 2 different processes when you be nominated by the state and approved by the governor and council, and Secretary of State's nomination is nominated and approved in the same meeting. And I had outlined in the memo that it would be coming July 10th for the consideration. But they've already done it all in the same meeting last week for the confirmation. So I have been nominated as the new state registrar for the state of New Hampshire and director of vital records, and been confirmed for that position. So I'm going to do everything I can on my way out and try to make a smooth transition for everybody.
Certainly.
So I've had the privilege of knowing Denise for several years, at least a dozen years since I've been a selectman, and I'll say this publicly, Denise and I have not always agreed. However, one of the things that Denise and I have always done is we've been respectful to each other, and we've been thoughtful of each other, and Denise has truly cared about the town of Guilford, has truly cared about the residents, has truly cared about her staff, have wanted the best for both, the best for the residents as well as the best for her staff. She truly cares about making sure that the TC's office is well run, is accountable. Audits that we've gotten over, again, a dozen plus years have always been superior to excellent. It gives you peace of mind knowing that somebody is in a position where records are being kept, payments are being made, and somebody of her caliber, and training her staff over the years has just been a priority to her. And that's why when we walk in, there's never a lines of 25 or 30 people. It's not because they're not busy, it's because they're productive, and Denise has trained them well, and they care about the residents of Guilford. They care about making sure that everything is done appropriately, and she's going to be sorely missed in that position, but we have faith and confidence that her replacement is going to just pick up the ball and keep running at the same speed and the same intensity and the same compassion for the residents, and you've done a great job, Denise.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to know you, and we'll continue to know each other. You know, we've learned a lot, I think, over the years, and I wish you nothing but great success, and I know that you're going to do an incredible job in your new position, and everything you're getting, you deserve.
Thank you,
So,
appreciate that.
thank you, Denise.
Jan?
I was gonna say that Denise and I have had more than a few nice conversations, particularly when I've stopped by the office for non-business purposes, just to talk about some things of the town. She also knows that when she sees a selectman come in to be, you know, to have something done, she knows the right thing to do, to tell us to stand aside and let everybody else go first, so.
No cutting.
And it's definitely been a pleasure. I know I've learned quite a few things from her during some of our discussions, and a couple times she's also suggested some things for me to look up to help me do my job here. And no words can really express my appreciation for what you've helped me with when I was a freshman selectman. So thank you very much, Denise.
Thank you.
I should not have let Gus go first, because he, being the
Stole your
wordsmith
thunder?
he is, it's hard to follow. Of course, you and I, our history goes back quite a ways. When I was a 3 to 11 shift supervisor at the jail, you were a part-time corrections officer. And we
Well, I
had
was
some
working
great.
here, right?
I would like to see a picture of her. That's what I would like to see.
Well, I'd like to think her time at the jail helped her to deal with angry residents. So,
I don't have any guilt.
I can certainly appreciate everything my fellow selectmen have said, especially the compassion you showed in that office and the professionalism that we've come to expect from everyone in that office. So, always glad to see someone improve and move up, and
Thank you.
certainly you made quite a jump, so we're very happy for you, and best of luck down at the state.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
And to the two chiefs sitting in the back, don't expect the same thing from us when it happens.
Mr. Chair, I believe I have a motion to make on this matter too.
Oh, certainly.
Yes. Mr. Chair, I move to acknowledge the receipt of the resignation on the effective date of July 12th, 2019 as presented.
Second?
First and a second. Sadly, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Old business. Request to reduce speed limit on Labonte Farm Road. Scott,
Something we perhaps have the chief address.
He has made a recommendation.
No.
Chief, would you mind coming up for a brief moment?
We got caught on the door, sorry.
Chief, Labonte Farm Road, that's off Hoyt, right?
Correct.
It's a dead end going uphill.
Correct. Yeah, and Murray something is the other one that comes off of that. But yes, they're both.
Murray Hill Road.
Yeah, Murray Hill Road. They're both cul-de-sacs, yes.
And your recommendation is, what's the current speed limit there, 35? What's your recommendation?
Yes, just to leave it, I forgot to grab my sheet. I know I provided you with a copy, didn't bring mine tonight. But yeah, my recommendation is if you look at the speeds that individuals are going, they're all within the speed limit. Within either 35 or below is the largest portion of what they're traveling. Very few, and you'll notice the ones that are higher, that are 40 or 45 and above, are coming downhill, so they're exiting the development. So my recommendation is usually in situations like this, what I've seen, my experience is, it's it's not like GPS is taking people there. It is a dead-end street, so I only can make an assumption without having stopped vehicles and find out where they are, but they're either residents of the road or visitors or know where they're heading. So it's not like just it's a regular thoroughfare, and there's lots of traffic going there. So based on the results of what the machine, what the GMR unit picked up over a 2-week period, and the percentages that are there, my recommendation is to leave the speed at 35.
Chief, if I hear you correctly, and I'll just give you your report for you.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure my math is correct. You're saying that 81% roughly of, when you were part of your report, it says that 81% of the people were traveling under 35,
Correct.
35 and under.
Correct. Exactly. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
Based on previous JMAR uses, this is unusual. The percentage of people going under the speed limit is extraordinary.
Yeah, well, so they were presented, so the speed limit there is 35, right. So 710 vehicles over the course of 2 weeks were going between 31 and 35. And then, 537 between 26 and 30, and 493, 25 and under. So, you know, it's, again, what's very, you know, I've been doing this again for a long time. People, if you know, when you do traffic, people think that vehicles are traveling faster than they are. So I know that the complaints are coming from residents on that road that people are flying on that road. But here are the, you know, here are the stats of what they're actually doing. So they're not really doing that. As Selectman Benavides said, 81% of the vehicles are doing 35 and under. But we ran into the same, you know, I think the same thing we just did on area road. You know, it was 35 there. We reduced it, ended up reducing it to 25. So we found out that a large proportion of the vehicles were already traveling at 25 miles per hour. So they were not speeding on that road either after a 2-week period.
Chief, your experience, a typical cul-de-sac neighborhood like that, those streets,
Yeah.
is it normally 35 miles an hour though?
Anywhere between, 35, yes. It would be 30 or 35. It would be.
So 35 miles per hour is referred to as the prima facie speed limit for rural roads. And to lower that amount, it requires in the statute a traffic investigation, which is what the chief has done.
I mean, I don't see a lot of opportunity for enforcement there.
Correct. Right. Can certainly set up, we do voluntary compliance, we can certainly set a cruiser there, but the vehicles, we wouldn't even make a stop on those vehicles.
Jane, you have any thoughts?
I mean, I know, I think my big issue is, I haven't been up there to see what it actually looks like. It's one thing to look at the statistics, and as you know, sometimes the statistics can be a bit misleading. You know, it's, when you have a road that's wide enough that 2 tractor trailers could pass each other, 35 is no big deal. If it's 1.5 lanes wide, 35 miles an hour is a big deal. And I'm not sure I would be ready to actually make a motion on this until I physically go, I want to lay eyes on it. I want to see what it looks like.
Well, so I would add, just add to that, if you look at this. So again, I break it down, westbound and eastbound traffic.
Yep.
So you can see that eastbound traffic, which is exiting, which is coming downhill, the Bonnie Farm goes up.
Yep.
Coming downhill.
Tends to be just a little bit faster, yeah.
Right, 256 vehicles were doing between 36 and 40, and 56 vehicles were doing over 41. Going uphill, you had 8 vehicles that were going over 41 and only 67 that were doing 36 and 40. You know, technically, on a 35 mile per hour road, I'm not giving out any secrets here, we could stop somebody for going 36 over. Typically our officers don't stop unless you're, 10 or 12, unless we're getting, so these vehicles, clearly it's the ones coming down the hill.
Yeah.
That they're going the fastest, over 300 exiting are going over the speed limit.
I think that's probably one of their bigger concerns. I'm sure there's someone here from the Bonnie Farm Road who could probably do that. I know that with some of the roads I lived, going uphill was not the issue, it was always coming down the hill. That was an issue. How wide is that road, really? Is it, standard width pretty much? It's not a slightly narrow road or overly wide road?
Yeah, I don't know the exact width, but it's a standard road to me. I don't think it's narrow at all.
It's a little bit smaller.
It's curvy going uphill,
there's a couple places where
Oh, some nice
No.
chicanes to
Yeah.
squeak through.
I'd be happy to give you a ride in my turbo Saab.
That's all right, I'll take the
The
Hemi.
chief didn't hear that.
I'll take the Hemi, so. Honestly, gentlemen, I think I'd be more, I really would like to eyeball this before we take any action on this whatsoever. I'm probably inclined that we probably won't change it, but I wanna do my due diligence on it. I probably should have gone up there beforehand, and I did not.
But Chief, just for the record, you're not recommending it be lowered.
That is correct.
And also, gentlemen, just for the record, the letter that we received on May 22nd, the resident was asking for us to respectfully request that a slow children sign be installed on the Bonnie Farm Road. That was period. And then they went on to say that we'd also like to ask the board to review the posted speed limits on the Bonnie Hill board to determine if it still serves the population living in the neighborhood. Just looking at those two sentences, number one, I think that there wouldn't be an issue, in my opinion, of if the board wanted to have the DPW put a slow children sign up there, something to just hopefully catch the attention of more residents and/or people passing through on that road, that to slow down. That's number one. I think that's the easy thing that, we could do if the board's so inclined. But number two, let's keep in mind that what they've asked, the chief's done. And then, of course, I'm not saying we don't have to, we can't wait 2 more weeks
Yeah.
for you to go up and drive and we come back. But I just want to say this is how it started, just for the record, what their
No,
request was.
I understand that, and as I said, I'm an engineer, I understand sometimes numbers say one thing, and then when you actually eyeball it, you realize that, well, the numbers were true, but they didn't give you all of the conditions that the numbers generated, and you find out that while the numbers look good, in reality, it isn't, it's misleading, so, this is the type of thing I can go up someday after work, drive up there and see, and, we may find out, yeah, those numbers are perfectly fine. But I wanna make sure, for my own peace of mind, and also for the folks who live up there, that we've done our due diligence. The traffic study certainly helps quite a bit. It's certainly a big indicator that the speed is probably not really an issue there. But I wanna eyeball the situation myself.
So if we put this on the July 10th agenda, you're good with that?
Yes.
Okay, I have no problem waiting. And for what it's worth, not that we couldn't revisit it, but we already
Right, we voted against it, but that's what I'm saying, I just wanted to say, this is how it started,
Yep.
The board can still do that.
Sure.
Yep.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
So we're gonna table this one until the,
July 10th.
July 10th meeting.
Solid Waste Center improvements. Scott, do you have a quote?
There is a quote. Other than that,
Yeah, we didn't have a meeting yesterday.
want to table that?
Please, I'd like a recommendation from the Solid Waste Committee. New business. Petition for the reconstruction of Belknap Mountain Road. Scott, you wanna give us a rundown on this?
Well, I'm sure there are several residents here of Belknap Mountain Road. Our current plan is to reconstruct Belknap Mountain from Hoyt to Carriage Road, and we have budgeted $212,000 for that. That would be the 4th section of road that we have reconstructed within the last 3 years. And I think if you read through the petition, the request is that we go further than Carriage Road.
So when was it on the schedule to be done normally, pre-petition?
2021.
2021 for the last section, which would be from Carriage Road to the Glen.
And Scott, what would be the expenses to be able to finish that project according to the petition?
We have not done that analysis.
So you have no idea how much it would cost us?
That's correct.
Do we know how far it is, even?
I do not. I suspect it's about a mile.
Just a moment, sir.
One moment, sir. Yeah, I did go up there, and, you know, I'm glad that my truck has some off-road capabilities. It is in very rough shape. I have to agree with the petitioners there. I doubt very much that road would last until 2021. It'll be almost impassable after the upcoming winter. Get us through that, and no one's gonna be going up, though, I don't know, it might keep Skip under control for a while, but I agree that something has to be done about this. That road will not survive another 2 years.
Sir, you wish to speak? Please step up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Ray, Marjorie's Walk, which is up off the end of Belknap Mountain Road. I mentioned the Rotary Club on Friday that I was gonna come and have some time today, and the lady said, well, what's so special about Belknap Mountain Road? And I said, well, how many of you folks have ridden up Belknap Mountain Road? So I'm pleased to hear that at least one of the selectmen has recently made that trip. It's a very unique road. Belknap Mountain Road, 3.5 miles long. Once you get past Hoyt, you've got 2 more miles, it's dead end. To go up to Carriage, roughly it's about 3/4 of a mile from Hoyt to Carriage, which is the proposal. The petition is asking, I mean, we'd like the whole thing done, obviously, but the petition is asking that we go another 1/2 mile, approximately, to the top of the hill past the oxen farm. Coming down from Carriage, and if you remember, Mr. Eddy, coming down from Carriage and going down that hill, that's the most dangerous part of Belknap Mountain. I personally know. I flipped over on there a few years ago.
You were the guy.
I was the guy.
He's not doing.
No.
So the part that you propose to fix is probably in the worst shape in terms of potholes and cracks and so forth. It's the second part that's the most dangerous. And there's probably 2/3 of the residents, I would estimate 200 people, that live beyond Carriage Road, down in the Glens, up where we are in Marjorie's Walk, further along up a Belknap Mountain Road, that have to travel to get out of there. There's no other way to get out. We're dead end. And so that's why we're fairly unique, and that's why we're appealing to good sense here, to do something before a real tragedy occurs. You also have the handicap. We've got Lyman Construction that has a sand and gravel pit there. And they have some real heavy trucks coming and going, picking up sand and gravel, 12-wheelers, 14-wheelers. So there's an extra burden being placed on this road with this very heavy construction. And so this is not gonna last. And so we're asking, we can find the wherewithal to go to the top of that hill past the oxen farm, an extra, again, I'm approximating it at 1/2 mile, and you would remove a lot of the danger that we're facing. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
Scott, how hard would it be for you to get a proposal before the board, or how soon, I should say, to get that before us so we can get an idea of what this would cost the residents?
Clearly, by the next meeting, we could have that figure. So what I've done is looked at what we're planning to do this year and where we might be able to free money up. So there are 2 sections of Old Lakeshore Road planned for reconstruction this year. The shorter section, which is the absolute worst part of that road, which is from Gunstock Hill to Henderson, that I would not advocate changing. We need to redo that road. The second section is the rest of the road from Henderson to 11B, which encompasses the bridge project that we're going to be doing this year. So if the board is considering this request, it would make sense that we put off that second, it's actually the fourth section of, actually it's the third section of Old Lake Shore Road, to be done until after the bridge is done. And then that would free that money up, which is budgeted at $290,000, to do as they request to get us to the top of the hill. So I'm confident that if the board's inclined to make that switch, that those funds will meet our needs to do that. I can certainly get a much better cost estimate on that for the next meeting. But to me, that seems like the most realistic thing to do. I do think the Old Lake Shore Road 2 section will come in a little more than 186. Liberty Hill's pretty close to being on budget. There has been about $36,000 of unbudgeted expenses that we've done this year. So if we look at it in terms of there being somewhere between $225,000 and $250,000 freed up by not doing that section of Old Lake Shore Road, that would be a possible funding source to extend the Belknap Mountain Road project this year.
But the board can't do anything until you get us some numbers of what it would cost us, so.
Right, I guess what I'm saying to you, if you're not inclined to change the road improvement program, then it wouldn't make sense to get the numbers. So that's, that's philosophically, I know that's an issue this board has grappled with time and time again.
So you want a consensus, Scott? Is that what you're looking for?
So, if you considering putting that section off and using available funds to extend this project, I can come back to you the next meeting with revised budget figures.
Please.
Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, may I approach?
Certainly.
Having lived out in the Glen, Gilford Glen Road for over 32 years, I would have to say that I didn't know that you were even planning on extending the redoing of Belknap Mountain Road. And certainly 2 Carriage Road certainly is pothole hell. And if it wasn't for a 4-wheel drive truck, I probably would have tried to find out more about the petition. That certainly would solve a lot of problems. If you're not willing to go to the top of what I call the ravine on the other side, I will point out over the last 2 years, that bridge that's at the bottom of that ravine has taken a heavy hit, and especially this year. And where that is a heavy salt road because of the incline, I'm worried that as a budget committee member, the amount of money we poured into that bridge would be put at risk if you can't solve that surface level problem over that bridge, because that salt is just going to get in there and start deteriorating the concrete and the steel there. And there goes the investment that the town has already made. So, I may not go to the top, but certainly you got to cover that bridge much better.
Thank you, Skip. I do want to address one thing that you said we've dealt with many times. Initially, when I came on as a selectman, one of the things I was concerned with, our road project thing was too long. And every year, we were doing half of what we expected to do. And so we shortened the list to something reasonable that we would have money for. And for what it's worth, this year alone, we've taken off Dinsmore Point, Gunstock Hill, Glen Ridge, Wuthering Heights, Cottonwood, Cross, and Leisure. Do we need to revisit this thing so residents can have some expectation if they see their road on it that we're gonna get to it?
I hope so. The plan was, out of the budget this year, which is $1,300,000 for road improvements, we had earmarked 10,000 of that to hire an engineering firm to revisit our entire road improvement program with some science and engineering expertise behind the recommendations. And the other thought is that, much like the state of New Hampshire, we need to, going forward, allocate a substantial part of our road improvement budget for reconstruction, but also not an insignificant amount on overlays to save the roads that can be saved much cheaper than doing reconstruction, which is how DOT does their road improvement program. So we want to mirror that approach And that's what all those other roads pretty much fall into that category of saving roads before they become expensive reconstruction projects. So the short answer to your question would be yes, we definitely are
Cause I mean,
re-examining.
we added 300,000 this year, and we still kicked 7 roads off.
The roads we've done this year are very expensive reconstruction
Yeah, oh,
projects.
yeah.
But plus, we have to remember too, is this winter was particularly hard on roads. First, I thought it was just this town, but I've traveled through different portions of central New Hampshire, and I find the problem is everywhere. This winter was probably one of the more destructive winters when it came to what it's done to roads everywhere. I know even the state is struggling to deal with some of the state highways, and those have been pretty well broken up as well. So I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing some of this, is just the fact that the winter was so rough.
And we've made amendments to it when it was, emergencies came up, so, but we do try to stick to it for obvious reasons. Okay,
Can I get up to speed?
certainly, sir.
Ron Salmetro, 593 Belknap Mountain Road. I'm at the top of the ravine. The biggest problem that we have at that corner and over the bridge is the road is basically just crumbling apart. The plow drivers cannot scrape the road. So what they end up doing is doing the best they can, dropping salt behind them. The salt has just enough time to take the snow that hasn't been cleaned off, turn it to ice. And now we have a skating rink down the hill to the bridge where it turns, so cars get caught in the middle. They can't get up one side, they can't get up the other side. They're stuck with either parking on my land on the side, which is fine with me, and having to walk up to the Glen, or walk up the other way because they can't get back. I've been there 38 years. We've had one stretch where they oiled and put the pebbles down in 38 years. That's all that's been done other than patching up potholes, which as soon as they get, 6 months later, they're broken up and falling apart. We've got chunks of road out. I've measured depths of 2 to 2.5 inches. That if somebody on a bicycle or a motorcycle hits it, they're gonna go in the woods. There's no question about it. It's totally unsafe. It hasn't been attended. It's been neglected. And it's time something gets done. It's just, like I said, 38 years. I mean, you've got your money's worth out of it. It's time to do something. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir.
Well, they take our fence out regularly.
And that's uphill,
Yeah.
off the road.
Excuse me, may I also add a couple of comments?
Sure.
Thank you. Tony Lamani, 771 Belknap Mountain Road. I'm at the last house on the right of Belknap Mountain Road. Just to add to what Ron said, I don't know if everybody here realizes, but someone put something in the newspaper about how wonderful it is to hike up there. So not everybody goes to the carriage road, but a lot of people come to the end of the roads. Many, many people come to hike, hiking clubs. And at one point, one winter, one of the school buses slipped on the road. Thankfully, the guardrail was there and some snow in front of it, but it is pretty bad going down that hill. And I do want to say that the guys who work for the Public Works Department, who've plowed our road, do a tremendous job. They do everything they can, considering the circumstances. And this winter, you could almost see the river below the bridge, through the road. It was that bad.
Thank you, sir. Scott, one of my favorites, the delinquent dog list.
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the confidential list of delinquent dogs dated June 20th, 2019, and to sign the unlicensed dog warrant as presented.
Second.
Give me a first and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Fire station apparatus floor repairs. Chief? You haven't got the police chief to back you up now. You're on your own.
I
have the proposal in front of you. This was from IP&C is the name of the company. They're out of Ashland, New Hampshire. We received 2 bids to repair the apparatus floor and then coat it with an epoxy material to refinish the whole surface. This is the apparatus floor that faces out to Cherry Valley Road, not the basement. The basement will not be touched. Like I said, we received 2 bids. One bid was approximately $40,000 higher than IP&C's original bid. So the Board of Engineers and myself were concerned that maybe we're missing something. We called IP&C and asked them to come back and met with them approximately a week and a half ago. It was at the engineers' last meeting, actually. They reviewed their proposal, they adjusted it slightly, and now we're at the, I believe it's 59,000, somewhere in that range, vicinity, which is still substantially less than the other bid. The engineers voted on it based on the new information and agreed to accept IP&C's bid. And we're looking for your support of that so we can get the project started.
Thank you, Chief. Questions for the Chief, Jim?
No.
Yes. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Scott, I understand we have sufficient funds for this in the improvements section?
Yes.
Okay.
Need a motion on this? Yes. Mr. Chair, I move to accept the proposal from IP&C of Ashland, New Hampshire to repair and resurface the fire station apparatus floor for $59,600.
Second.
There being a first and second, any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Gilford Police Department and Big Brothers Big Sisters. Chief? Just a brief rundown on, I realize we have this, but just give us a brief rundown.
Certainly. Big Brothers Big Sisters, as you know, the organization's been around for a while. They do a national program called Bigs with Badges and Bigs in Blue, and they're bringing it to New Hampshire, and they have an office down in Concord. They're going to have an office up here at the Boys and Girls Club in Laconia, and they're reaching out to agencies to see if agencies are looking to be interested in becoming part of the program Bigs with Badges, and to have what they call littles, so little brother or little sister come. The requirement is 4 hours a month, but instead of doing like the traditional Big Brothers Big Sisters where it's one-on-one, it's the whole agency. So we would have a young woman or a young man come and spend an hour here, hang out with us. Every individual, what I would do from here, if we can sign the MOU and get on with that, it's a 2-year commitment, and then I would just take a number of individuals who are interested in being with those littles, and they just have to go through a background check and an interview process. They put us all through the same stuff that everybody else does, and then if we're accepted, then we would be paired up with somebody, and then he or she would show up and usually when they do it with organizations like this, it would be like every Tuesday, say from 2 to 3. And then the child would be transported here, dropped off, hang out for an hour. We help them with homework or take them on tours or rides or whatever. Hang out with them, do our Big Brother, Big Sister stuff, and then they go home. So 4 hours a month. So I'm just looking to enter into an MOU with Big Brothers, Big Sisters and do that as a community outreach and community policing. It's just the program is up and running, so even if we start now, they're still putting it together. Again, there's about 3 or 4 agencies that are going through the process now. And so this wouldn't be until further in the year when it finally got off the ground. So
Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome.
Sounds pretty worthwhile.
Yeah.
You have questions, Chief?
No questions.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks.
Chief don't go anywhere.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Okay, in that case, Mr. Chair, I move to approve and authorize the police chief to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Big Brothers Big Sisters as presented.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Guilford Police Officer gift card donation.
So all that simply is we have a personnel policy. The town personnel policy says that any gifts that are $25 and under are fine. I have an internal policy that talks about gratuities. Officers are not allowed to take gratuities, but it also mirrors the town. So oftentimes people, are gracious and drop off donuts, believe it or not, other kind of pastries, cookies, whatever, you name it. It just so happens that our SRO has done some really great work with a student at the school this year. And unbeknownst to her, the students' parents were very, very grateful for the work that the SRO has done with her child, and went out and got her a $50 gift card to Common Man. So she gave it to me, and I'm looking for approval just to turn it back over to her and let her have it, because it's beyond to get your permission, because it's beyond the $25 threshold.
And I think I can speak for all of us when I'm sure SRO Raxter wasn't expecting anything in return for her good work, so. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to allow SRO Raxter to keep the $50 gift card donation.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. 9.6, Department of Public Works radio system upgrades. Scott?
Gentlemen, as you know, we are upgrading the radios for police, fire, and public works. And so the police and fire upgrades are all underway. This was the last piece of that puzzle. Unfortunately, our radios are Motorola radios, and Ossipee Mountain Electronics is the dealer for that. So there's really no opportunity to go out to bid, given their tie-in with what we have and how they all communicate with each other. Our past experience has been favorable working with them, but this is an expenditure that would require approval of the Board of Selectmen. It is a little over budget, however, there's another item in that same account that is under budget, so there will be sufficient funds in the line item for that purpose. Their quote was $8,518.95, and so I recommend the board approve that.
Just a quick question, Scott. The AED that came in under budget, where is that located?
So it'll be located in the Public Works garage.
Oh, okay. Is there one there now?
There is not.
Oh, okay, good thing. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to waive the purchasing policies to allow for single source vendor purchase in the amount of $8,518.95 for Ossipee Mountain Electronics for DPW radio system upgrades.
Second.
First and a second, further discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Department of Public Works, purchase of a hot box. Scott?
So we budgeted, we had $20,000 in the budget for a hot box, and the head mechanic has shopped around and found a best deal, which is much less than the $20,000. He's recommending we purchase a 2-ton slip-in unit from HP Fairfield for $14,400 as the low bid of the 3 bids that were solicited.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move to approve the purchase of a Falcon 2-ton asphalt recycler hot box, the amount of $14,500 from HP Fairfield of Concord, New Hampshire.
Second.
One typo there was 14,400.
14,400?
Yep.
Okay, 14,400 I amended to leave that. Okay.
Second. Yep.
Just a quick question, Scott. This asphalt recycler, is that gonna take crushed asphalt that we have out at the recycle center? Or does it just, how does this work for the benefit of those watching at home?
So it's primarily so that we can go to the plant and get hot top and keep it warm while we bring it back here and use it to fill potholes. And to use this material, hot top, instead of cold patch, which as everybody knows is virtually useless and very expensive. So hot top is cheaper, and so the plan this year when we put together the budget was to keep that hot top warm so that we can get the most bang for our buck in using that material.
Well, you say filling potholes. Since we get them in the winter, is this gonna be used in the winter? Because the plants are closed.
Yeah, so when the plants are closed, then we don't have the
Okay.
ability to
All
get
right.
hot top.
Well, the stuff that we grind up out at the stump dump, what if that got heated? Would that work better?
No, because it's it's a complicated process to create bituminous concrete. And if it was as simple as taking recycled asphalt and injecting it and heating it up, the world would be a better place. But it doesn't work that way.
No, just thinking out loud.
Yeah.
If I was wrong, the engineer here would
I
correct
envision
me.
someday somebody will come up with an invention to do that, and when they do, they will, it will be a gold mine.
I'd invest in it, because I could retire. Oh, wait, I am retired. Thank you, Scott. There being motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Department of Public Works again, out-of-state travel request. Scott?
So again, the head mechanic is looking to send, his original request was to send 3 employees to the Bendix Brake School, which is the heavy-duty brakes used on all of our trucks. My suggestion to the board is that we allow 2 employees to attend this out-of-state training opportunity.
The 10th to the 12th, of those weekdays, I'm assuming, there's no weekend day involved in that? I mean, how do you guys feel about all 3 going, or just 2?
It's a Tuesday through a Thursday.
The only issue we have is if something comes up, there's not a mechanic on duty to deal with a breakdown or a necessary repair. That's my only concern.
You have any concerns?
Because Scott, all 3 would be gone.
Yes, if you would approve that.
Right.
And typically, you know, we have 3 employees there, and they don't all have the same skill set, so I think having 2 of them with the benefit of this training gives us pretty good coverage.
It's fine.
Well, it's not in the winter, and the trucks are pretty well maintained. If they plan ahead, I'd like to see all 3 get the training.
Certainly up to you.
How are you feeling about that, Jim?
Well, I don't have any problem with it. I already voiced my concern, but that's again, considering that it's gonna be September and, you know, it's not the worst part of the season for them to go, like we'd be in the middle of winter, so.
I mean, if the truck broke down and can wait till they get back, my concern would be the fire department if it's an emergency repair. You have a problem with that, chief?
I don't.
Okay. Let the record indicate he shook his head no. Oh, sorry, I'm talking like a court reporter now. I'll entertain a motion either way, however
Okay.
you feel about it.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the out-of-state training in Norwood, Massachusetts for specialized brake school from September 10th through the 12th for 3 DPW employees.
Second.
First and a second, further discussion, Gus? You hesitated.
Nope, makes sense.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Route 11B crosswalk. Scott, you wanna give us a rundown on that?
Well, what I've provided you is a series of emails that were exchanged between a resident of the Yacht Club Vista and the New Hampshire Department of Transportation Traffic Engineer Administrator, where he pretty much reiterates why they will not approve an additional crosswalk there. But so they were looking for something, some sort of signage or something that could go in there, and as Mr. Lambert, who's the DOT Traffic Engineer Administrator, indicated, that is something the town could conceivably do if you wanted to, given the fact that they're not gonna approve the crosswalk on the state highway.
Scott, considering what we went through with the no parking signs, is this on that level, or is this something where it's a state road?
So ultimately, we would need to get approval for whatever device we put because it's a state highway.
Okay.
I don't think it's quite as complicated as the no parking regulation, which required a sign off by the commissioner of DOT after investigation by their engineering staff. And clearly indications are that he would probably approve that, so I see it as something worthwhile on a trial basis.
I'll entertain a motion if you're so inclined, Jim.
Mr. Chair, I move to authorize the purchase of 2 crosswalk warning devices to be placed on the roadway on Route 11B upon approval by NHDOT on a trial basis.
Second?
First and a second, further discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Other business, Potter Hill Road sidewalk, Gilford Village Knowles trustees. I'm sure there's some people in the audience who want to speak on that, but can you just, for the benefit of those watching, Scott, give us a rundown on it?
Sure. So 2 years ago, the town selectmen and ultimately the voters of the town agreed to put $50,000 into a capital reserve fund for sidewalks, with the goal being of creating a sidewalk from Gilford Village Knolls 2 and 3 up to Belknap Mountain Road. And then an additional $50,000 was added to the fund in this past year. So there was a total of $100,000 put into the fund. We spent $3,500 doing some design work. And we've approached our paving contractor for a price. Have not yet received one, but he indicated that he thought the designer's estimate was pretty close, which is close to $120,000. I think originally we had looked at a $90-something thousand price tag, and that was 3-4 years ago. So that price is going up a bit. So I've been working with the Gilford Village Knolls trustees. I think there are 3 of them here this evening as we seek to get this project going. And so I think they're here today to find out what level of financial commitment the town is willing to make. And there may be some other concerns as well. So why don't we turn it over to them?
Please feel free to step up.
Anthony Ferrullo, Morrill Street, Guilford. Before I address the Potter Hill Road sidewalk issue, may I make another comment?
Certainly, sir.
I don't attend these meetings as frequently as I used to do when I was in business in town, but I want to thank all of you and the administration, selectmen, and the town's services, safety services, for the fine job you do. And living in town for 43 years, I feel very, very lucky to be here, and thank you for the hard work you all put in. I appreciate it. And Denise has already left, and that was a sad situation. And Gus's comments, all your comments were right on point. But thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So as far as the sidewalks, Scott has laid out where the town has come from, and has been thrown back to, not thrown back, but asked for Village of Knolls to go out and try to raise some funds to supplement the sidewalk funds. We've been successful in raising some funds, and we're here tonight to say that we've reached a point where we'd like to see the project go forward. Sandy McGonigal, who was a trustee who has been spearheading the arm twisting, fundraising, has been very, very successful, and I think she'd like to speak also. But we've been able to come up to about $50,000, which we'd like to contribute to the project. Some private donors and some public donors also. So, Sandy, would you like to add to that?
No, I think you're doing fine.
Sandy would not like to add to that.
50,000
So,
final offer?
How can we move the project forward? We're anxious to try to get it approved. We want to know our money has been committed, but we don't have it, so we're waiting on checks to be written to us so we can collect.
Some of the people gonna, if we commit our portion, will that make people write their checks?
The commitments are, yes.
Based on our...
Based on the town going forward. And Hayden McLaughlin, who is also a trustee of Village Knolls, would also like to address you this evening regarding the design, which we all have had the privilege of taking a peek at since January. So if you have no questions of me, perhaps Hayden can speak?
Do you have any questions, Jim?
No questions of Tom.
No, not right now.
Mr. Hayden?
My mother's name was Hayden, so.
Sorry.
Hayden McLaughlin, owner of Belknap Landscape, also
We're
lives
sorry
51.
to get you off the golf course tonight.
You know, and it took us 2 hours and 45 minutes to play 9 holes, so I deserve not to miss dinner. But, you know, when Tony and Sandra brought this project forward, I looked at what the engineer had done. My only challenge with it, in looking at some of the estimates and stuff, was putting a sidewalk into this area really connects the Gilford Village with the new entities that we have in the village, meaning the community center, the expansion of the church, the library expansion, and then obviously all the Village Knowles complexes that they have. It really brings all of them together. And so when I was asked my opinion of it, I really felt that we needed to try and unify what the feeling was, that when you walk down Belknap Mountain Road and you're in the Gilford Village, that you get the same feeling when you go left down Potter Hill Road. It really should be one village feeling. And we've got a great opportunity here to really engage that between the sort of the two entities, because there really is not obviously that sidewalk going down towards Potter Hill. And it really is going to be something that I think is going to help unify all the great amenities that we have going down Potter Hill. So I would encourage us to look at not only what has been designed by Steve Smith Associates, but also adding some enhancements to that to try and keep it consistent with what we already have in the village. The village obviously has, you know, an imprinted sidewalk, but it also has a very New Englandish feel to it. And some of the enhancements that I would encourage us to look at include some fieldstone walls instead of maybe some more manufactured concrete block walls, which would again enhance that unity feeling between I'll call it the two roads, because it's really not two different areas, but the two roads to sort of unify that whole village concept. It's really a unique opportunity for the village to take the next level, take the next step to the next level, as far as unifying that village feel as we move forward, because it's whatever statement we make, it's a 50-year statement. And from my perspective, living in the village for 25 years, and then visiting other New England villages, it's kind of a big deal. And I believe the current estimate that we have does not necessarily take that next step. And I think that Sandra and her fine work with raising these additional funds to help potentially take that next step to providing that New England village feel to that area is going to be key. But we need your support in going to the first step of where you guys are at as far as the funds that are available, because at that 119, 120 level, I'm not so sure we're going to accomplish that. And it is a 50-year, from my perspective, it's a 50-year statement. So I hope that we can gain your support moving forward with this project, because certainly I feel we've done our part to come up and pony up to bringing up the enough money to help enhance those enhancements, or fund those enhancements, taking that next step to the 50-year level. So, thank you.
So, hey,
Yep.
the magic question is gonna be is, how much are those enhancements gonna cost?
We're not quite sure yet, unfortunately. I think if you funded your portion of it that you have available, along with the 50 that we have been raising from a fund standpoint, we can achieve our goal.
So you're thinking your enhancements would be roughly another 30 grand?
Yes.
And who would come up with that additional 30 grand?
Well, I think with the 100 that you have available to you right now, along with the 50 that's been raised by Sandra and all her comrades, with the 150 budget, I think we can achieve what our goals are.
But you don't have an actual estimate yet?
No, but I'm familiar with the numbers that are present, and I certainly feel that it's very doable. I do.
Okay.
So if you do something to make a contingency, or however you wish to formulate your commitment, if you will, I'm sure that we can make this work with the budget that would be at that 150 level.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Scott, my question for you is, I want to be clear about this. The additional 50,000 that was put in this past year, was that specifically earmarked for the Potter Hill Road sidewalk? When it was presented to the voters?
I don't think that it was specifically earmarked for that, but I think the board certainly knew that as far as sidewalk projects go, this is the only one on our current to-do list. Does that help?
Well, it does, because in other words, if the residents who went out and voted for it were voting for that money being earmarked for this project, then that's where this money should be.
So there's a little over $98,000 in the fund right now.
98 or the 96.5?
It's 98.
Is that what it is now?
Yes, 98 and some change.
I have no problem expending the 98,000 for the project, but I'd certainly wanna see some numbers, and the sheet I had said it didn't even include, some additional work beyond the 119,000.
Correct.
So
we're
that
still trying to
additional-
button those numbers
Oh, yeah,
down.
I
So-
understand.
So the numbers that I'm getting are for the curbing and pavement, for
Yeah.
the walkway with the base. And then my understanding is the folks at Gilford Village Knolls are working on the, sort of the landscaping aspect of the project, come up with a number for that. Then I think we'll know where we stand. But I think if they're hearing you correctly and I'm hearing you correctly, if you're willing to commit that, all of the funds that there now, that will certainly help them to button this down, and I think we'll be able to come back to you real soon with a more formal project that you can actually vote on.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm for one, have always been in favor of this road sidewalk project, but especially this is the will of the voters of Guilford. That's what the voters voted for. So I think if, in my opinion, once, if the three of us are in agreement that all this 98,000 and change would go towards it, plus their 50, contingent upon estimates, numbers, specifics of how this project, all the details are presented, then we can formally, be in favor and voting for it. Because we want to just make sure that this project doesn't go from 119 to 150 to 250,000, right? We want to make sure that we're being responsible with the residents' monies, that's for sure.
Hi, Roger Perry from Potter Hill Road. I believe this project was proposed about a year ago for a cost, an estimated cost of $90,000. 50,000 of which was gonna come from the town, and the rest was gonna come from a fundraiser. So now we have a deposit of $98,000. Does that come directly from the town?
Yes.
It does. So now we've doubled our original quote was what was being asked for. Now we're asking for more money from the town to enhance this project. And not that it doesn't need to be done, but it certainly could be done through a fundraiser.
So Roger, sir, if I may, to answer your question, the difference being is they're not asking for an additional 50 grand. They've come up with an additional 50 grand out of private donations. What they're asking for is the $98,000 that the residents have already voted for that is in that capital reserve fund for
Did
that
I not hear
purpose.
him say that he did not know how much this was gonna cost? Did he just not say that?
His additional enhancements.
That's,
Correct.
we have no estimate on that, so we'll just
Not yet.
write a blank check?
No, sir, no. I'm the one that specifically just said that, sir. We're not gonna vote for this project without an absolute specific estimate of what it is, how it is, when it's gonna be. We're not spending a penny, sir, until we get those specifics.
Okay, so if this comes in at $30,000 more, is the town gonna spring for that again?
That's the point, sir. We need to find out what those costs are. The voters have already voted for $98 or $100,000 roughly to go to this project. They've come up with 50,000. That's what I just said. What happens if this project comes back in at 250 or 200, right? That's why we're
understand
gonna
what
ask.
you're saying, but originally it was gonna be 50,000 from the town and 50,000 from a fundraiser. Now we're up to 98,000, now we're gonna be asking for more, so I just,
Sir, I'm not gonna disagree with you. The difference being is the residents voted for that.
they did.
That's the point.
Was that on it? On
Yes,
the ballot
that's
last
the
year?
point, yes.
For a sidewalk?
Yes,
Really?
that's the question I just asked, sir. So that's my point. If the residents
Well, I
voted.
must have missed that vote.
Right, if the residents voted for that, I'm just saying, if the voters voted for that purpose, for that intention, the selectmen shouldn't be going against what the voters wanted. That's what the voters
Well, if
wanted.
that's what you're saying is true, I'll agree with that.
Well, that's why I was questioning the town administrator, because I wanted to make clarification and get this on the record, that that's
Is
what
that
the
true,
voters
Scott?
intended.
There's no other sidewalk project in the works.
Okay, so
Other
it was
than
on,
Potter Hill.
was on the voting last year?
And so two years in a row, voters have put 50,000 into that fund.
Okay, so, well, I missed that vote then. All right, so.
But Roger, I appreciate the fact that you came out tonight, you left your house, it's almost 9 o'clock at night, for your voice to be heard, because that's what we're talking about. We're always encouraging residents to be able to ask questions and to be able to, because again, it's a simple, we found out, you didn't realize that, but that's what we found out here in just in a calm conversation.
Well, you could use, that same analogy, Rags used earlier with the fire chief and the police chief, If I don't use the police or the fire department, why should I pay taxes?
Right.
I don't use the school, why should I pay taxes?
That's a whole
Knows
different
one,
question.
knows
Yeah.
school doesn't pay anything towards school taxes, why should I pay taxes? That's my analogy. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night. Travel safely.
Ms. McGonigal. Ms. McGonigal.
Yes.
Would you kindly step up and entertain a question?
Yes, sir.
Worst case scenario, the 98 plus the 50 doesn't cover a 50-year plan. Could we hope that maybe you guys could do some more fundraising to cover it?
Yes,
And
we will
not
promise
come
you
from
that we
tax?
will do that, that we understand the limits of your budget and what you have. And as Hayden described to you, we would like to make some slight changes, especially to that wall. And we've also talked about imprinting the sidewalk, similar to what we have on the sidewalk on Belknap Mountain Road. And if I may speak for Hayden, Hayden has also suggested that we don't paint it, that we would imprint it, but not paint it as it is on
Thank
Belknap
you.
Mountain Road.
I love that idea.
And the reasons are obvious to you, I'm sure.
Okay, and, I'd hate to see a third warrant article for another
Yes,
$50,000.
yes. We will do whatever we can, and we'll continue to work with Scott to refine that proposal so that we will be within the budget guidelines that we think we sense you want
We'd love to
from us.
vote on it, but
Yes.
certainly we'd like to see.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Menard.
Thank you for your support.
Okay. Another favorite part of the meeting, public input. Does anybody in the audience wish to speak?
Yes, I wanted to, I'm taking tips from Tony here. So I'd like to also thank you for your service to the town. It's just amazing the amount of time and effort and your genuine openness to listen to all of us about our concerns. And I would also like to thank Scott. Scott has been very supportive to me personally with regard to our work with Kimball Wildlife Forest and other issues that come before us, not only sidewalks. So thank you, Scott. But I really rise to commend Denise, because I've worked with her very closely on election days, and there is no one more knowledgeable about election laws in the state of New Hampshire than Denise. And she is always precise, and we always have, as you all know, because you are there, we have accurate tallies. And I would also commend her for her openness as well. There is, whenever a voter comes to the youth center to vote, she will do whatever it takes to be sure that person has the opportunity to vote. And sometimes they aren't even in the building. Sometimes they're in the parking lot and can't make it into the building. And she will do whatever it takes to assure that they have the opportunity to vote. So she's going to be greatly missed, and I appreciated your kind comments to her tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if I may say, Susie, it's us who should be thanking you for your service as a moderator in Kimball Wildlife Force, all the things you do for the town that are gratis. So we appreciate that.
You're very welcome. I'm
We
happy
get
to serve.
Paid $41 a week pre-tax, so.
I know,
we
been
can't
there.
complain.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Skip, and I'll just pre-say this. If you have examples of where you think the town is holding back a business, tell us and not make us guess.
Well, at this point, first I want to say thank you for adjusting those fees the way that you did. I wasn't sure that you would, but you did. I say thank you. I think it's a good step to promote more entrepreneurship here in Guilford. Do I know of any others? No, because this is just the first time this has come up since I've lived here in Guilford and been politically active. I may indeed go look for more.
And I would welcome that, Skip, because it's a first for me too. And I'm not a big government guy, I'll say that right up.
And I must admit, I like that you're a numbers guy. You're a very good numbers guy at that.
Sometimes.
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 Well, I'm not asking you to quote pi out to 27 decimal places.
That, I'm only going two digits, 3.14, whatever.
1.6.
Thank you. But I would suggest to the board that you may wish to take what I asked for earlier under advisement, which is to go through the fee structures and say, is this out of line? Is this bringing in a profit versus covering the town's cost, which I think is more appropriate in the latter rather than the former, because it adds to the tax base, it helps us all the way around, because the more companies that come in, yes, there is always services that must be provided, but at the same time, there are more taxes, more jobs, more residents. We want to be known as a vital place to be. We don't want to be known as the place that scares people off. So, it's basically, that's all I had to say at this point, but especially thank you for, in this one small little case, saying, yep, this is the right thing to do, and you did it.
Thank you, Skip. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak? There being none, we'll move on to selectmen issues. Jan?
I have nothing at this time.
Gus?
I just want to recognize our chief for being selected. Chief, come on up for a quick second of the fire department. Chief, why don't you tell the rest of the board and anybody here the great position you've just attained?
Oh, last week down at the New England Association of Fire Chiefs Conference and Expo in Connecticut, I was sworn in as president of the association.
Congratulations.
I want you to know I applauded when I said I wasn't going to.
Thank you.
I've known the chief for I don't know, chief, maybe 2 decades or so now, and I knew the chief before he was the chief of Guilford, and nobody cares more about their profession than the chief. Nobody cares more about their community than the chief. It's great to have somebody who's worked really hard. You deserve that position. You run that department so well. You care about the guys, but at the same time, you're trying to be as professional as possible, top to bottom, inside and out. You know, chief, you really run that department well. You're an example to others of how to run a department. You're consistently fair and professional in all that you do. You care about the residents. You care about the people that, and I shouldn't just say residents because you deal with a lot of visitors and guests and things like that. And it's great what you've done, and your example shines through in that department. I'm happy for you, Chief, of you being recognized for this, and I know that you're going to have an influence to other chiefs and to other communities throughout the state, Chief. It's well deserved, and it's another shining example that Guilford is a great place to live, but also to work. So kudos to you, Chief. Great job.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chief.
All set on selectmen issues?
That's it.
I just want to tell people that we're ready for the 4th of July. We've got our cans ordered for Glendale. We're fully staffed at the beach. We got the same vendor at the beach we had last year. Employees at Glendale. We're good, right? Just one thing's not related to July 4th, because you're acting DPW head at the moment. The sign by the school, the radar sign, it normally gets moved.
It's gone.
Oh, it is?
Oh, yeah, long gone.
Wow.
Been gone for weeks.
My compliments. Thanks, Scott. I have no other issues.
I will say, I generally tend to shy away from correcting a selectman at a meeting, but there's one area that we're really not all set at all, and that is the Public Works Department. We're down 3 truck drivers. We've been advertising for truck drivers for weeks and weeks and have not received one application. So the board has come up with hopefully a strategy to resolve that situation, and we will work on that. But in the meantime, you know, there are things that we're just not able to get to because we are short-staffed.
Well, always correct me if I'm wrong, because I gotta tell you, people are afraid to correct me because I'm just a citizen like everyone else. A couple weeks ago, Sergeant Barron from the police department, I was introducing him as Sergeant Bacon. He would not correct me, and that upset me. I
Chief,
make a
make
fool
sure
of.
that's a positive in his review next year, okay?
He is on probation, which may have something to do with it.
People call me Chief Burpee, he does tell them that I do have 2 last names.
But my kudos to him for not correcting me, but on the other hand, I make a fool out of myself fairly frequently, up to and including today. So, you know, if I'm wrong, correct me. And would you tell him that for me, Chief?
I will.
I'm not embarrassed, believe me. Administrator's report.
I'll be very brief. Please to note that we have finished the reconstruction and paving of Liberty Hill Road, over a mile of road. There's still some shoulder work and lawn repairs to be done, but the base of the road is down now, and it is anticipated that that will be the Indianapolis 500 Speedway down in Gilford for the foreseeable future. So we're hoping the police department can do something to help keep that under control.
Certainly don't want to entertain another petition about reducing the speed limit.
But it's much improved over what it was, and you know, that's our goal for all of our town roads, to get to that point. All it takes is money. That's it.
Okay, our next meeting is July 10th, 2019 at 7 p.m. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Crop TV.